Hello. Thank you for coming to Dragons and Robots. So before we get started, we take a quick vote. Who's here for the dragons? All right. Who's here for the robots? Okay, I have to admit, I'm more of a robot guy myself. That was just for fun. That has no impact on the outcome of this talk. But I do have lots of dragons and robots to show you today. So I'm Chase Cooper. I'm the product manager for rigging in Unreal Engine here at Epic Games. And I'm going to show you all the cool rigging and animation features we have coming to Unreal Engine 5.4. All right, so I'm very excited to show you Modular Control Rig. This is a powerful new tool for building robust digital animation rigs directly in Unreal Engine. So rigging is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Historically, to rig a character can take years of institutional knowledge or understanding of complex mathematics. Modular Control Rig takes a stab at trying to solve this by adding a playfulness to rigging. Modular Control Rig is about assembling a character from parts and focusing more on the final animation. Inside Modular Control Rig, we can use the full power of the Control Rig framework underneath to author the modules. These modules connect together with connector points on each module that plug into sockets within the skeleton. This framework allows for rapid creation and management of digital animation rigs. So let's jump into Unreal and take a look at this system and some of our other tools. All right, so I'm in Unreal Engine 5.4 here. We're going to go ahead and create a new modular control rig. So to do that, just like you would a regular control rig, we come in here, and now you have two options, control rig or modular rig. We're going to choose modular rig, and I'm not going to name it for time. We are going to save it, though. I'm going to pop open this editor. And this is our new modular control rig editor. Up here to the left, we have all of our modules available in the project. These modules we will be shipping with Unreal Engine 5.4 and a plugin, experimental plugin, but you can also write your own modules and they will show up over here anywhere on the project. Down here to the bottom left, we have our modules that will get built as we build them. We're about to start seeing that fill up. And over here on the right, we have our rig hierarchy, which is also going to start being created with bones and controls, and then our details panel. So let's leave this up. The first thing we need to do is pick an asset to rig. So let's go ahead and rig Quinn. So I'm going to load up Quinn here. And the first thing that happens is our root module rigs itself, and it's ready to go. We don't have to actually do that one. That'll happen on any asset you bring in. We're going to hide the bones. And as I mentioned, these modules connect to sockets. And we have our first socket here. This is a socket that lives in the skeleton. You can see it up here. And the modules will build these, do its best possible to try to build these on the skeleton for you so you can connect up more modules. So the first one we're going to do is I'm going to drag in the spine module and just drag and drop. And we have a spine rig ready to go. Okay, and we're just going to keep building her out. So we need two shoulders, shoulder for the right, shoulder for the left. Let's add a neck. We got a neck rig, and let's add two legs. Okay. And there's no order to do this. I can do this in whatever order I want to, as long as I have the socket here. Let's go ahead and do the arms. All right. So the fingers are fun. I'm a rigger myself, so rigging fingers has always been quite tedious at times. And so all you have to do is drag and drop. I'll do one of them here, and we get a finger rig ready to go already. So pretty fun. And maybe that's too much dragging and dropping. My finger is hurting, so let's drag all of them, and we'll get the rest of them. All right, so a few clicks, and we have a full set of finger rigs ready to go. And all this is already hooked up for us. You don't have to do any extra work here. As you see over here, the hierarchy gets assembled. We have a lot of controls already. I'm going to compress this down, but it's already nicely organized for animation and ready to go. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the features of how this is happening. So I'm going to build two more modules, and that's the feet modules. Let's drag these on here. So I think most folks who animators know what a foot roll is. Usually rigs have a foot roll rig. And so this can actually be quite complicated. Although it's a kind of tried and true technique, setting up these kind of setups can be actually quite difficult in a modular system. So what happens is we build the leg, then we build the foot, and we need the foot to modify the leg module. So how we did that is we have metadata that flows down through all the modules. So it lets you create complex setups like this, where I build the foot, and it actually modifies the leg for me. I'm going to show a bit more of that in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're going to actually delete the foot, because the next part of this demo does not require that. We'll compile it. Okay, so I've rigged up Quinn here, and maybe I want to test this out on another asset, or I'm actually rigging another asset, and it was just easier to start here. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to throw this onto a robot, get into the robot part of this presentation. So as I change the skeletal mesh down here, it changed the preview mesh, but it also, all the modules adapt to the skeleton that's incoming. There's logic inside of these modules trying to rig this for you. And we do that with the connector event. So as I do that, it'll do its best possible to try to rig this little guy up, and he's all working just like you would expect. Okay, so let's turn back on our bones. And I'm going to go ahead and add some custom sockets. So sometimes you might not get sockets where you want them. You can always build your own. They work just like sockets in the rest of Unreal. We just display them in the visual schematic here that's drawing on top of the screen. So I'm going to, let's create those. Let's turn bones back off just to have a better view. I'm going to select these two sockets, and we're going to add the chain module. So this is like an FK chain module, pretty basic. But because you have the full power of Control Rig underneath these modules, you can have these modules adapt to different types of rigs if you want. So this one's fun. We have, and something else to note, they're white. I want them to inherit these colors. We need to parent them in to get that metadata to flow down through them. So I'm going to actually parent these under my neck. See the color changes, and now, let's see, we need to run that connector event. I'm going to auto-resolve. And now as I move this guy, it's all parented in, I have the correct colors, and everything's working. I could stop here and be done, but we're going to go a little further. So you can author settings for your modules, and you can expose anything you want. Anything that's available in Control Rig, you can expose to the top level of the module to tweak. So I've set up this cool little dynamics checkbox. So when I turn that on, and I come and wiggle the head now, I get really neat dynamics. And so that's just one setup to this rig. There's also like an IK setup in this chain, and as you're building your modules out, you can expose whatever you want to the top level of the module. So that's pretty fun. Okay, let's actually delete those because we're going to rig something else now. Let's say, okay, I'm done with that. I want to go check out how this works on a bigger robot. So let's pull up a bigger robot here. This is Big Bot. And so the rig changed and it adapted to this skeleton. It's a biped. With these modules too, it'll work really well on bipeds. It's kind of used to working on bipeds. So most bipeds, it's going to try to find what to do, and it should get you, 80 to 90% of the way there. But you might notice that the controls, we can't really see them, and I can't grab them. So using, the top level settings, I'm going to actually crank up the control size. And so now he's much easier to grab, and I can start posing him. And pose his head around. Everything works. Okay, and maybe I don't like these colors. Maybe this asset, I don't know, I want to do some different colors. I can come in here and change the color of the center controls for all my modules. I don't have to come and click each control individually. So that's kind of a fun way to interface with these. Let's see how much time do I have? I have a minute. Okay, so let's take a look at I'll do a quick overview. I don't have time to go over the full system of how this is working, but let's jump into I've had a few questions come up of hey, we have Control Rig and we have the graph, and then we have this system. How do they talk? So all these modules are Control Rig. You can see there is a rig module type. So I'm going to pull up this add control, and of course it's going to go to the back here. All right. So this is the add control module. This is the Control Rig graph. You have whatever you can access in Control Rig, you can turn it into a module. To generate a module, we have a button. You can turn it back into a Control Rig too. I'm not going to do that because it'll break my demo, but it's real easy to make a module. So all these modules are here to dig through it. You can just double click them and see how it is built. Here's the neck module. If I turn back on my bones, you can kind of see how it's assembled onto a skeleton. And you can click through here and kind of see how everything was built inside Control Rig using the full power of the graph. And you can tweak them or make your own. Okay, and as I mentioned, these are going to be shipped in a plugin, and this should just all work as you turn it on. Okay, so let's close these up. And we're going to take a look at some, let's see what this looks like in Sequencer. So this rig I just built with BigBot, I'm going to go ahead and drag him in here. Okay, so if you're an animator and your rigger gives you a modular control rig, you should see no difference from a regular control rig. As an animator, you really don't care if it's a modular rig or regular control rig. So if you have a system already, you're animating an engine with control rigs, like our Lego team. We have over 80 animators building all the Lego content with a large team of riggers and animators animating all of that over hundreds of minutes of animation. So if they should know no difference between a modular rig, essentially. All the animation features work. We get space switching. You can use all the animation tools and constraints. All should be fine. But let's go ahead and add some animation to this guy. I'm going to grab my some Mixamo animations here. All right, and I'm going to retarget them. So the new retargeter, to retarget, you right-click on your animation sequence, and you pull up retarget animations, and we get this nice, simple window. And simple is the key here, is that we've really focused on this release of simplifying the retargeting workflow, because we know it's been very challenging. While it's very detailed, and you can do so much in there, also a lot of the time, you just want to get a quick retarget out and get going on. So let's plug in BigBot here. And as I click through my animations, I get an instant preview of the retarget. And so let's change to this guy, quarterback pass. That's kind of fun. All right, why don't we do that one? So let's export animations. Let's go to right here. You just click through, and now we have a retargeted animation ready to go on this quarterback pass. All right, let's save it. Okay, let's load it up in Sequencer. Okay, so I'm going to load up my, let's see if I can spell it. There we go. Okay. So you might know nothing's happening. He's kind of wiggling around a little weird here. Let's mute our control rig. You can do that right now with this little icon. And so now we have our animation live in here. Pretty good retarget, but noticing that my feet are going straight through the floor because this is a big robot. So what I'm going to do is actually unmute my rig. And we're going to make it a layered control rig. This is a new feature coming in Unreal Engine 5.4. So as I click this, the rig is actually driving on top of this animation now. We have a feature in Control Rig called the inverse solve, or the backward solve. And this is now firing that graph live. So really, the results of this is only as good as that inverse solve, how much logic is in there. And all the modules are shipping with an inverse solve. So however you construct them, they should somewhat work pretty well with this system, or you can author something yourself. So I'm going to just start addressing these feet problems with this rig right here. Let's grab this guy. We're going to rotate it up. We get everything working. Let's set a key. So it's already a little better. I'll probably have to spend a lot more time on this. We have very limited time. So now this foot is working a bit better. I can just animate right on top of here, and I'm just fixing this animation right in context. All right, so that's the new retargeter. That's how easy it is. Okay, let's take a quick look at the skeletal mesh editor. All right, so I'm going to pull up Marsh here. So we'll say he's a dragon. He looks kind of creature-y dragon. It kind of fits into that category. So the skeletal editor we introduced in Unreal Engine 5.3, and it lets you create bones and edit bones in your skeletal mesh, and also paint skin weights. So 5.3 was experimental. We're moving it to beta this release. We're feeling pretty confident on the trajectory of it. We've added a lot of really cool quality of life features that let you do a lot more in this editor. So let's take a look at building bones. What can you do now? Sometimes I like to work in the lighting only mode. It's just a little friendlier for like constructing skeletons. You can see how the bones are much clearer. So we've added a new button here, and this lets you build bones around components. Components is kind of the theme for Unreal Engine 5.4 Skeletal Editor. So now if I click this, you can see I can access all my components, and I can select a bunch of stuff. So maybe I want to build some bones along here. So I'm going to select some components, go to Add, and it's going to create a bone right here. Okay, we don't want it coming from that, so we're going to select that as our parent. Come back in here. And maybe want something like this. And now we get a bone off of there. And real quickly, I can just select some points and quickly get a bone chain like right in the middle of this little horn here. Okay, so I have some bones here. We can also snap bones. So let's say I want to snap this in one to like some faces. Select some faces. And here I have this bone selected, and we can snap it. And it'll try its best to align it to the geometry for you, just making everything as easy as possible. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, one more thing I want to mention is you can also, this seems small and trivial, but it's actually a big deal if you're used to Unreal workflows. You can copy and paste all these new bones around skeletal meshes now. So right here, I can copy and paste this to my heart's content, or duplicate a small thing that goes a long way. Okay, so we're actually going to keep those, just for the sake of this demo. And we're going to move on to skin weights real quick. This is a similar amount of updates that are really powerful. The biggest one, if we added a bones mode. So in Unreal Engine 5.3, you actually couldn't pose your character and paint weights on it. So it was kind of a limitation. It was an experimental feature, but it was okay. But we got that in now. So now we can go into bones mode, and we can middle mouse click on our bone and immediately start posing it. And as I pose this guy up, let's turn off lighting only mode. I can then start coming and using all my painting tools to adjust the weights. Hold down B. Let's see, B, and you can adjust the strength right in the viewport, and I can start painting my weights. I'm not doing a good job at this. This is, but we'll relax it some. I'd like to note that the relaxer is using a very nice relax algorithm. It's not really a smoother, but we definitely understand that some other DCC smoothing algorithms are very difficult to use. So we've implemented a really nice relaxer in our tool. Okay, and you can load up animations. So any animations, I actually don't have any for this guy. He's kind of weird. He's like this weird thing. I just don't have any in this project, but you can load up like a calisthenic or any kind of your gameplay animations. You want to paint weights directly on it and really get those deformations right, you can do that now. So last thing I want to show is the component editor. And this is another small thing that goes a long way, but a big feature. So I think my #1 request I got from customers was being able to grow your points. So this is a big deal. Actually, you couldn't do this in 5.3, but this is you select a point and you can grow your selection now. You can also flood your selection and it'll select the entire mesh. I'm not going to do that here. He's one continuous mesh, but for robotics and anything like that, it's really helpful. So now I can come in here and grow my points. And I can also see where these points are weighted to. This is like a component editor. And we did it a bit differently. So now if I want to change the weights, let's see what these weights are. I come down here and I think about where I want these weights. So if I want it to favor the upper arm more, I can do that. And the points will now just be more rigid to the upper arm. Or if I want it to be mostly all to the lower arm, now when I come and rotate this guy, and see, he's hard weighted to the lower arm. So it's really easy to come in and adjust your individual weights now. Okay, and the last thing to show you, it's really fun. Let's go ahead and reset these bone poses. Oh, sorry, not the bone name. Let's reset the transform. Okay, we're going to come into generate polygroups. This is more of a preview for where we're going, because I think this is an interesting story, being a rigger myself. Okay, so this isn't what we want. We want fine quads. So yes, it's way better to do all of this work on a quad mesh. It's hard to do this on a triangle mesh sometimes. So we've started this, exposing this in Unreal. We know we don't have quads in Unreal, but this is kind of the baby steps to getting there. So hopefully in the next couple of releases within the next year, we're going to have a full quad working workflow in this editor and some of our other editors to be able to have more artist-friendly workflows, because that's really our goal here. All right, so let's jump out of this editor. And sticking with the deformer theme, let's go talk about the deformer graph. So we have deformers in Unreal Engine 5.4. We've actually had the deformers for a while. Our machine learning deformer uses this deformer graph underneath the hood as a framework. And this is a GPU-based deformer system for assets. So our goals with 5.4 was to, again, make it more artist-friendly, make it friendlier for technical artists. So we've taken where the deformer graph has been, and we've tried to make it editable. So similar to the modular rigging system, where you have the full power of the control rig framework underneath, now you can make cool little deformer rigs while having our full power of deformer graph underneath. And you can author deformers using nodes and HLSL. So we're shipping, as an example, a suite of deformers with Unreal Engine 5.4. We have bend, flare, squash, stress, twist, a lattice, and dual quaternion skinning. So I've set up a quick little deformer stack here. To quickly explain this, we won't get too much into it, but you start up here, that's your rest points, comes down into your skin points, then we start deforming the mesh all the way to our final deformation. So what it lets me do, let's load some animation onto this guy. Dino anim. Okay, he's already deforming some, but now I can tweak these deformers and make them really like squash and stretch. And do some interesting stuff. And you can hook all of this up to Control Rig, expose it to animators, and I'm going to show a cool demo of that in a minute. Let's see, maybe I want to squash him down. I have this other deformer, this twist. And so maybe he needs to do something like this as he's flying through the air. And this is all happening on the GPU, so it's really fast. Really fast and powerful. So that's the biggest updates to the deformer graph. And so go play with this, and we'll have all these deformers native to the engine. All right, so let's talk about animation a little bit. I'm going to actually create a new scene here. And I'm going to pull in this dragon rig. This is fun. All right, so some of you might have seen this guy. We actually featured him last year at our UEFN reveal. He was in the, I think it's called the Forest Guardian experience on UEFN. So this rig has a really cool feature that I want to talk about, and we'll go into our animation features. You can turn on dynamics, and this really shows the power of Control Rig. So if I take this control, let's see, make sure I have that selected. Yeah. and I start wiggling it around, I get really interesting effects like this. And the whole rig is animatable too, so wherever I drag this guy, he's going to follow. I can do a good job here. Here we go. So it's really fun to play with. So I'm actually showing this because I want to talk about gizmos and manipulators. We have completely rewritten the gizmos and manipulator system for Unreal Engine 5.4 for animation and rigging. So this is a completely new gizmo. It's in a plugin. So what are the advantages? Why would you use this over the regular Unreal gizmos? For one, if you're animating, it has indirect control. So if I go to my rotate, a middle mouse click over here, it rotates for me. It just turns on the arc ball and rotates for me. Or I can just grab it and real easier. If you try to do that with the left mouse click, it won't do it. So posing your characters becomes much easier with this plugin. And there's a few other advantages. We're exposing Euler rotations, so you can have rotation order on all your controls. So really fun. And because we want people to use this, I'm going to show you how to turn it on. New, let's see, new TRS gizmos. You just come and turn this plugin on. And you have to then turn on one setting. All right. New gizmo. Enable new TRS gizmo setting, and then you're good to go. You have to restart. And if you're animating or rigging an engine, you should absolutely turn this on. OK, let's talk about a few other animation features. We talked about layered control rigs. We've reworked constraints a bit. So I think the biggest update here is more of a technical thing. The constraint manager, where all the constraints were stored, used to be stored in the level itself. It's now stored in the level sequence. So you can take those with you much easier. We've also made it easier to make constraints. You can also set your settings before you create all your constraints. And the anim details, I like talking about this one. So I'm going to actually set some keys on this guy. We'll just make them go up and down here. Go up, and then we'll come back down. There we go. So now we have a little bit of motion. And we have some keys. So if I pull up my graph editor, usually you have to come through here and try to click and figure out where everything is. Now you can just click on your curves directly in this anim details view. And it'll isolate it right in the graph for you. So it makes the workflow really easy to see what's happening. Then I can just come in here and I can edit. Let's do Z. It's mostly on Z. Edit kind of how that is working right in the editor. So pretty cool. All right, and that's a quick overview of all the animation settings. I'm actually going to play a video. We'll talk about this for a second. All right, so Frederick Nielsen, our animation product manager, he took all of these techniques I showed you and put it together on the Dragon. So he was able to take a lattice. We have a lattice in our deformer system, and he made a quick animation and was really able to make a really neat, exaggerated performance on this guy and with squash and stretch. So squash and stretch, of course, great for cartoony animation, but also great for exaggerating your realistic characters too. And this is a great example of that. So I'm going to let this play, and you can kind of see his animator workflow and how quick he's able to iterate. And that is the end of this talk. Thank you for coming to Dragons and Robots.